Hello everyone, and here we are again talking about Tesol. And so today we're talking about traditional versus communicative language teaching. Notice I'm not saying English language teaching. Tesol, of course, involves English as a second or other language. However, these rules can apply not only to English language teaching, but also to language teaching in general. And I even think also with just general teaching, classroom teaching. And so these can go beyond the borders of ESL, but also other areas of teaching. But we'll focus, of course, today on the area of language, English language teaching, traditional versus communicative language teaching. And you can see a question here. I've got a question here for you. What comes to your mind when you hear the word student? Think about that for a moment. What comes to your mind if I ask you, or if I say the word student, what's going to come to your mind? I'm going to give you maybe some ideas that maybe people might think, possible stereotypes. Maybe you're thinking some technical answer. I'm just asking a generalized question. Maybe if a teacher, specifically speaking, you as a teacher, what comes to your mind when you hear the word student? Now, the answers I'm going to show you, they're not going to be all-inclusive. They may not even be favorable for you. You may not like them. But I'm just giving you a generalized idea based on my own experience over the years. For example, when a teacher may hear the word student, or when a teacher hears the word student, they may think lacks knowledge. The student lacks knowledge, and it's my job to give them knowledge, possible. It might be also that the student is simply a person who sits in my class and they receive my information. That could be a stereotype. You may even think that. Certainly when I was coming up, I was thinking that way. When I was in school, I kind of thought that way too. Even though I wasn't a teacher, I kind of figured that's what students do, just sit and receive the information. Also, a student can be subject to the teacher. In other words, the teacher is the queen or king of their kingdom, and I must obey. This is the idea. So the student is someone who has to follow what the teacher says. Another possible stereotype is the student could even be inferior to the teacher. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that the teacher has more knowledge, so has more ability or skill, whereas the student, of course, lacks these things and not quite up to speed as the teacher. It sounds kind of negative. All of these actually sound negative. I agree. But when we talk about stereotypes, they normally are negative in nature. Now let's go back. I'm going to ask you the next question. When you hear the word teacher, what comes to mind? Think about that. What comes to mind when you hear the word teacher? It could be a picture, it could be some words that come to your mind. But let's look at this. And I'm going to remove that. Okay? Now, possible stereotypes that may come to your mind, my mind, certainly have come to other people's mind. And that's from my interactions. The teacher has knowledge. Very simple stereotype. The teacher has the information, and the teacher disseminates that information. So many people I meet, many teachers, up-and-coming teachers, teachers who are already doing the job of teacher, people who want to become teachers, many people I train, I will hear, I have a passion to teach, and I want to give my students my information. I want to teach them what I know. Honorable, it's quite honorable, but it is a possible stereotype. The teacher has the knowledge, and you want to give that knowledge. What we're discounting is that maybe the students have knowledge too. Or maybe there's something we can get from the students. But that's a different story. Later we'll talk about that. The teacher has authority. This is another stereotype. The teacher is the boss. The teacher is the subject matter expert who knows or should know everything about the subject. And so I'm the boss, I'm the authority in my classroom. I know everything that's supposed to be known, hopefully, but probably not. No one really knows everything, but that's what students maybe look at the teacher and think that, right? So we kind of put pressure on ourselves to have all of the knowledge. But invariably, the teacher is viewed as, you could say a stereotype, the subject matter expert. So you have the knowledge, you want to give it. And generally speaking, kind of like what I'm doing now, the teacher is the one talking. I wonder if we got inside the heads of some students in our classes, our English classes, or other classes we may have taught. I wonder what they're thinking. Could they be thinking, I wish I could share my experiences. I wish I could share what's on my mind, just like the teacher is doing. So, teacher is normally the one who's talking all the time, most of the time, majority of the time, while the student is passively receiving that information. Okay, so I'm just giving you some general stereotypes. It's very generalized. I'm not pointing a finger at anyone. I'm not attacking anyone. But let's be realistic. These are ways of thinking that people have, teachers and students and others involved in this. A teacher might think of a student in a certain way. A student thinks of a teacher in a certain way. A teacher thinks of themselves a certain way. And sadly, students limit themselves by thinking of themselves a different way, or excuse me, in the same way. So let's move on. Now, I'm going to share with you 3 teaching perspectives. This is something that I came up with, again, over the years of experience. I started to realize and came up with the idea that there are 3 teaching perspectives. Now, I admit I don't have all of the answers to everything, and you may have a different perspective you could share. By all means, please share it in the comments. But I boiled it down to about 3 perspectives when we were talking about language learning environment. Now, I'm going to start erasing here, and here we go. But I'm going to cover these here real quick so as not to be distracted. First of all, we have the teacher over the student, and this is the teacher who is the authority in the class. This is the teacher who is kind of the president of the class, the ruler of the class, the boss of the class, the king or queen of the class. And this is the teacher who basically dictates what is to be learned. Now, don't get offended. I'm not saying you're a dictator. But I guess if you dictate what's supposed to be learned, we could associate that. But no offense whatsoever. This teacher dictates what is to be learned according to general mandates. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, as I know, each country has a Department of Education, and they decide what is to be learned. In the language learning environment, each academy or each school decides what is supposed to be taught in the classes, and that's it. There's no room for anything else. This is how it must be. This is what the students are going to learn, and that's it. So we call these teachers curriculum deliverers. They receive the curriculum and they administer the curriculum. This kind of situation or perspective is very lesson-centered. What do I mean by that? It means we're not thinking too much about the student. Of course, we're trying to think what they need. The people who develop the curriculum, perhaps, maybe they're thinking what the students need, but more so they're thinking about what we want them to know. I hope you can see the difference there. Okay, so teacher over student. This is the one who delivers the curriculum that they have received. They're the boss. and this is it. I'm standing in front of the class. This is what you need to know. I'm giving it to you. Pass the test. Move on. Now let's go to the next one here. And this one is, oops. Let me fix that. Please excuse me. There we go. Now this one, I'm going to get my stuff going here. This is the teacher to student perspective. Now you can see that the teacher is not above the student in this case. The teacher is standing in front of the class, but in this case the teacher is the one who has the knowledge, and this is the one who's giving the information that they have. This is the teacher that I like to say has the passion to share what they know, whereas this one, teacher over student, is more of a job. This one is someone who has the passion to teach and to share what they know. They know a lot about a subject and they want to share that with learners. Okay? Now, the learners, however, are still passive recipients. They're just sitting kind of receiving the information that the teacher thinks the learner should know. In other words, I'm going to share this knowledge with you because I think you really need to know it. I think this is knowledge that you need that will help you. Because I know about this very well, this is what I'm going to share. Is this wrong? Not necessarily, but it's quite teacher-centered. If you'll let me highlight that. It's still teacher-centered in the sense that the focus is on what I can give you. I'm thinking more of what I can give you instead of what you can give me or what I can gather from you. Now, this is the person who receives a curriculum or even may prepare a curriculum, but they're translating this curriculum, let's say they received it, they're translating this curriculum into what they think is best for the students, the passive recipients. Okay, I hope that's making sense. Now let's go to the third, and now this time, ta-da, that's what I should have did. That's what I've been doing at the beginning until now, which I should not have been doing, but anyway. Let's go to this one. Now this third type, notice the arrow here. Whereas in this case, teacher over student, sounds like a mathematical equation. Very technical, but it's very comfortable. The second one, you have one way. The teacher is giving information to the student. And this third perspective, this is where the teacher and the student interact. Sounds communicative, doesn't it? It also sounds more modern, kind of what we've been teaching you through the course. This is teacher and learner. The first one, teacher over student. Second one, teacher to student. Now this one, teacher and learner working together. In this case, the teacher doesn't necessarily view the student as a student, but as another person of equal status, of equal measure, who I'm interacting with, working together to help them achieve their goals. And so number one, what is the goal? I have to ask. I have to find out what the goal is. In these previous two perspectives, I'm not thinking about what the learner wants to achieve, what the goals are of these learners. However, in the teacher and learner perspective, I am thinking about that. Then I focus my lessons, my curriculum on, it's centered on what the learners need to know or do with the language based on interaction with the learners. In other words, needs assessment. I'm checking to see what that student needs or what these students need to succeed, or what their language learning goals might be. That's what I do. I'm bending and flexing and adjusting and molding and shaping the curriculum, so that makes me a curriculum developer based on the needs of our students. So I'm interacting with them. It doesn't mean I'm having a conversation necessarily. What it means is that I am observing them, I'm inquiring, I'm curious, I'm asking, I'm assessing their individual needs, rather than for example, in the first case, a blanket lesson that maybe they don't need, or in the second case, what I'm assuming they need because, well, I'm the expert. In the third case, I have based my lesson on what those students particularly need, and that makes this lesson learner-centered. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, stop the video, look and read and think about it, and then listen to me again if you can bear it. But we have these three perspectives. The first two are somewhat traditional. Certainly the first one is traditional, the second one is somewhat traditional. Now the third one, this is more of a communicative or communicative perspective. And again, we're talking about language learning, but I think they can be applied in other situations. Let's move on. Now, question, what is language for? Of course, it's to communicate. I know that's so basic, but think about it. Language is to communicate or for communication. You see all these different ways of saying, it looks like thank you. Yeah, we got the thank you. Maybe you recognize one of these. But that's how we communicate. We're trying to learn the language so we can interact with people or the environment. It's not just basic, it's not just facts, but language is to be used. I agree, other subjects such as science and math can be used, but that's a different subject. Pardon my pun. But let's move on. Now, what is a language learner? Think about that. What is a language learner? I know, it's very basic. It's a person learning a language. Now, I want to focus your attention on person. All of these children, and even their parents, they are people. Guys, they're people. If you're going to teach, remember, you teach people. You don't teach classes. You don't teach lessons. You don't teach at the academy. You are teaching people. These are humans, just like you and me. They have needs. They have goals. They have desires and wishes and dreams. These are people who want to learn to communicate. Yes. Now, I agree, many of them have other purposes, but the bottom line is, it's not for us to judge. We are teaching people. Now, why are they trying to learn English? Many of them want to communicate. Many of them want to participate. Some want to succeed. And others want to improve their situation. What am I talking about? First and foremost, I have taught so many people who want to learn English simply so they can communicate with quote-unquote foreigners or possibly travel. They want to be able to communicate. Another group of people, they want to participate in the world around them. They realize that English is a global language and they want to be able to participate in the global community. The second or the third group, they want to succeed. Perhaps their business, perhaps education, whatever the situation might be, in their mind, they need to use English to succeed. I remember watching or reading a text or an internet site of some children, and I think it was a North African nation. I want to say Morocco, but I'm not sure. But these children realized that if they learned English, it could help them succeed in life. Okay? Now, we're not just talking about children here. We're talking about adults. We can put children or adults and even seniors in any one of these categories. Now, the final category, and again, I don't have the perfect list, but it gives us a general idea, makes us think about the people we're teaching. Remember, we're teaching people. Okay? Now, one of the reasons, another reason is they want to improve their situation. As I mentioned, they realize they can go from a bad situation into maybe a better situation if they can learn the language that they need to succeed. Sadly, there are even cultures that I think it's a sad situation where they're kind of pushing off their native language, and speaking English is a little more prestigious. Perhaps you know that situation quite well, but people who speak English are considered a little higher status in these particular cultures. I don't promote that, and I don't give it a thumbs up. What I'm saying is people are learning English because they want to improve their situation. So again, it's not for us to judge. It's for us to teach. Our job is to teach people. Remember, these people are coming to you because they want to learn. Remember, they're paying their money, they're giving their time, and they're giving their effort and energy to learn from you. They want to learn. Give them what we can, right? So here we go. Why are they learning English? Communicate, participate, succeed, improve their situation. Maybe you have some more. By all means, share your comments. I'll be happy to hear from you. I might even reply if I have the time. Let's move on. Now, what is a language teacher? Well, it's certainly not just standing at the board going over vocabulary. That's part of it. It's the means to an end, but it is not the end of language teaching. Okay, we need to understand that. A language teacher is someone who helps our English language learners achieve their English goals. Think about that for a second. A language teacher is someone who helps an English learner or a language learner. It's important we put that language in there because if we don't, it sounds like a subject. Helps our English language learners achieve their English goals. We don't know what the goals are. It could be any one of these or something different I haven't spoken of. Maybe something you've never even thought of. But our role is not to teach them what we think they need to know. Remember? It's not just to teach them what we get, although I agree this is a problem in many academies around the world. Our job in our little kingdom, in our place, in our classroom, is to help those learners achieve their language goals. Okay? And let me erase that. If you're going to be a language teacher, remember, you are not in the classroom to dominate. You are in the classroom to facilitate. The student knows who you are. You don't need to emphasize who you are. You don't, I'm the teacher, you don't have to do that. They know who you are. That's why they're there. They're coming to you, looking for your help. So we're not here to dominate. We're here to facilitate language learning. Okay? You can have a smile on your face, be friendly, kind, nice, wonderful teacher all day long, giving out all the information that you think they might need or that they need. But that's not teaching a language. That's teaching a subject or teaching a lesson. Okay? There's more to language teaching than just standing up and lecturing. There's much more to it. Now, let's talk about the difference between an English class and an English language class. Let's start first with an English class. You see it all the time in high schools. You see it all the time in schools and far too often in academies. English is only a subject. The students are learning about English. They're not really learning English, they're learning about it. So it's a subject just like math, science, history, social studies, whatever class you want to put in there, where you get a lot of facts. Now, some subject teachers are very creative, but I'm just talking in a traditional way. Okay? In an English class, or in an English class, there are only right and wrong answers. Right, wrong, sit down, be quiet, very good, not very good. And this is how we approach it. There's black and white. There's only one or the other. Nothing in between. There's pass or fail. Sorry, you didn't get 70%. You failed. You'll have to repeat this course. Okay? So the student feels stressed. The student is traumatized. The student thinks English is nothing different than another subject. I don't have to use it. I just have to master it. The subject. Now let's look at an English language class. In an English language class, English is the medium of communication. There are multiple possible ways of communicating a message. There are gray areas. Maybe I don't want to put subject, verb, object. Maybe I want to talk like Yoda. Of course, go he must. Instead of he must go. I understand. In English, we have the standard subject, verb, object. I understand it. But can the message of the learner be understood? Yes. Can we help the learner and facilitate an improvement in their speech or in their language expression to be more readily understood? Sure we can. But we don't condemn them and say, wrong, you didn't do it right, you didn't pass the test because you didn't say it perfectly the way I think you did. No, that's not an English language class. An English language class, we want to encourage confidence in our learners. And what we're doing, we're not just learning about it, we're learning how to use it. So think about that the next time you're in class. Are you teaching an English class or are you teaching an English language class? That's something to think about. All right, we're almost finished. I like to relate this to the fishbowl and the open seas. With a fishbowl, what do you do? If you have fish at home, you walk by, you give them a little food, fishy, 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 and they come around and they get it. They're getting the food. Later you come around, you feed them again, and they're swimming around, they're getting the food. Sometimes when they see you walk by, they're swimming around hoping to get some food because they're just waiting for you. There's nothing for them to do but just wait around, hanging out with each other, swimming around, enjoying life, getting fed when it's time to be fed. That's it. Now, let's go to the open water. Look at these fish. Is anybody feeding them? No. No one's feeding them. They have to get the food themselves. Do they know who the predators are? They certainly do. They understand the coloring? Yes. They understand who's out to get them? Friend and foe, they understand that. They know the places to go to hide. They know the places to go to get food. They know the places not to go, perhaps. So they're very aware of their environment and they are able to function. Now, question. If I took these little fishy fishies and after a few years in the bowl and I put them in the open water, question, would they survive? Now, there might be some marine biologists listening to me that might give some exceptions, but generally speaking, common sense might tell us they would not survive. Why not? Because they did not learn in this fishbowl how to function in that environment. They weren't taught where to look for food because they were being given food all the time. They didn't have to hide from enemies because there's no enemies. They didn't learn any other colors because there's only one color, the gold. And they're all friends. So you get the idea? So the fishbowl fish will not be able to survive in the open water. The open water fish are doing their thing, surviving, hanging out. Now, let's equate this to the classroom and the real world. Interesting. I bet this guy is a wonderful teacher. Nice guy. He treats his students very well. Students get good grades in his class. He's really, quote unquote, a great teacher. However, he's teaching them about English, verbs and nouns and prepositions and adjectives and adverbs, and they can answer the questions and pass the tests. but this teacher may not have been preparing those students to function out here in the real world. Would those students be able to read signs, go to hotels, rent rooms, rent apartments, take taxis, schedule a flight, go to the hospital if necessary, find somewhere, ask for directions? Would they be able to function in this environment? My experience over the years, no, they would not. They would know about the language, and they can take tests very well. But when it comes to interacting and conversing, you know what I'm talking about if you're an experienced teacher. They can't. They can't speak. They can't use the language. They lack the fluency. But they've been studying it very long time. There has to be a balance between learning about the language and using it. Unfortunately, a lot of effort in the fishbowl classrooms is spent on learning about the language and not enough on how to use it in the real world. How do we do that? Well, keep going through the course and you'll learn different strategies how you can make your classroom more authentic. See, the beauty of a classroom is you can help prepare your learners to function in the environment, in the English environment that they intend to go to or be in, through giving them a variety of experiences. You can do that. Whereas in the real world, they may not always be focused and prepared on everything that might come up. So that's the beauty of having a classroom. Now real quick, and I'm done, this is the final slide. This is a lesson that a teacher might give the students. Now, a fishbowl teacher, and I don't mean that to insult anybody, but that's how I classify it. A fishbowl teacher might tell the student, okay, please read the dialogue. And the student says, good morning, I'm Max. And hi, I'm Bigger. How are you, Max? Fine, thanks. And they just read through it. Or maybe this teacher has some idea and, okay, you read this one and I'll read this one and we'll keep going. And that's fine. Good morning, I'm Max. Hi, I'm Digger. How are you, Max? Fine, thanks. And then the teacher might ask them some questions. Well, what color is Max? What color is Digger? What is that he's holding? Nothing wrong with that for lower levels. Maybe nothing wrong with that for higher levels. But if that's as far as you go, you're not really getting them out of the fishbowl. What are you going to do to make this a more of an open water experience? Read the dialogue, read it with feeling, and then make it real for the learner. Put their name in it, your name in it. Maybe you can change a little bit about what they say. Instead of it's a pen, maybe you say it's a notebook, whatever the case is. And then the third time around, the first time you do it together, second time change it, the third time around, make your own dialogue. This is how we make it an open water experience. I hope this has been a helpful lesson for you. Please give me feedback. I'll be happy to hear from you if you have some ideas. But I hope this has been of help. And remember, guys, make it communicative. Please do not dominate, but facilitate the classes. And finally, remember that these students are people. They're humans just like you and I, and they have needs. It's up to us to find out what those needs are and provide for them. All right. Take care. Happy teaching.